The luminous archive was not a place of paper or screens. It was a realm of pure, ordered thought. On the Lumine homeworld, a place of sculpted light and resonant sound, the archive was the soul of their civilization. It was a symphony of data, stored in crystalline lattices that chimed with the history of a million stars. Within this grand repository moved High Scribe Valerius. His form was a soft, golden glow of woven light, his movements slow and deliberate as he addressed the apprentices. Shimmering before him, their younger light was sharper, brighter, pulsing with the eagerness of untapped potential. The first edict is not merely our oldest law. Valerius's voice resonated, a chord of ancient starlight and unwavering certainty. It is the bedrock of our existence. It is the fundamental constant upon which our entire civilization has been, built for 100 millennia. Before we bent light to our will, before we learned to sing the songs of gravity, there was the edict. He gestured, and a section of the archive pulsed. It projected a holographic image into the space between them. The image was grainy and distorted. It showed a single, unremarkable biological creature. It was soft, asymmetrical, and confined to a watery world orbiting a common yellow star. "These are the sleepers," Valerius said, his golden light dimming slightly, a subconscious act of reverence and fear. "And the edict is absolute. Do not disturb the sleepers." The apprentices shimmered, their light patterns reflecting the deep, instinctual terror the image invoked. It was a fear they didn't understand, but one that had been coded into their very being. They knew nothing of the sleepers, save that they were primitive, chaotic, and must never, ever be awakened. But one light among the apprentices pulsed with a different frequency. It was Kalen, Valerius's most promising and most dangerously inquisitive student. "High Scribe." Kalen's voice was a sharp, clear note that cut through the reverent silence. "Forgive my query, but it is the nature of the Lumine to seek understanding. If these beings are so primitive, why does the edict command such fear? How can we truly honor a law we do not comprehend?" Valerius turned his full, ancient glow upon the apprentice. For a moment, his light flickered with agitation. "You tread a dangerous path, Kalen. The edict is not a puzzle to be solved. It is a truth to be obeyed. Some knowledge is not worth the price of its discovery." Aboard the research vessel Stellograph, silence was a living thing, punctuated only by the soft, melodic chimes of the ship's systems. Here, far from the Grand Archive, Kalen made his case again, this time in the privacy of Valerius's personal observation chamber. A holographic star chart dominated the space. With a series of precise gestures, Kalen highlighted a swirling, uncharted nebula at the very edge of explored space. Within its gaseous folds, a single, anomalous point of data glowed faintly. "High Scribe, I have tracked it for cycles," Kalen began, his own light a focused, silver beam of intensity. "A vessel of the sleepers. The Somnus. It is adrift, ancient, and utterly isolated. We have a singular opportunity to resolve the defining mystery of our people without risk." He brought up simulations, complex waveform analyses that flowed like rivers of light. A low-impact quantum probe. Its resonance signature would be less than that of a passing comet. We could analyze their hibernation technology, understand the source of the edict's power, and be gone before our passage was ever noted. We would not be disturbing them, you see. We would be observing them, to better uphold the edict. Valerius's golden form wavered, the light within him churning with conflict. Every fiber of his being, every lesson from 1,000 generations, screamed that this was heresy. The edict was not a text to be interpreted. It was a wall, absolute and insurmountable. "The risk is too great," he stated, his voice heavy with the weight of millennia. "The fragments we possess speak of their chaotic nature. To even be near them is to invite discord. To be near an active sleeper, perhaps," Kalen countered smoothly. "But these are dormant. They have been for eons. What if the true danger isn't the sleepers themselves, but our own ignorance of them? To live in fear of a shadow is not wisdom, High Scribe. It is paralysis. Give me leave to solve this riddle. For the sake of knowledge. For the sake of finally freeing our people from a fear they don't even understand." The plea struck Valerius, where he was most vulnerable. He was a scribe, a keeper of history. His life's work was the pursuit of understanding, and here, Kalen offered the key to the one locked door in the entire archive. The temptation to finally know was a gravitational pull he could not escape. He let out a long, resonant hum of resignation. Very well, Valerius conceded, the light of his form dimming with profound reluctance. You may proceed. But the very instant, your probe detects any change in the vessel's status, you will withdraw. This is a passive scan only. Kalen, no direct interaction. That is my absolute and final command. With a pulse of triumphant silver light, Kalen bowed. He moved to the ship's command console and transmitted the new coordinates. The stellograph shifted its course, turning its nose away from charted space and toward the swirling, unknown mists of the nebula, carrying with it a scholar's ambition and the weight of a decision that would unravel the galaxy. The stellograph glided from the swirling lavender and crimson clouds of the nebula into the silent black beyond. Before them hung the Somnus. It was a colossal, brutalist relic, a tomb of a ship that showed no signs of life. Its hull was a patchwork of dark, pitted metal, scarred by micrometeoroids over untold ages. There were no elegant energy signatures, no shimmering containment fields, just the profound, silent cold of dead machinery. Valerius felt a sliver of relief. Surely nothing so inert could pose a threat. Launching the quantum probe now, High Scribe, Kalen announced, his silver light pulsing with excitement. A tiny, needle-like drone detached from the stellograph and drifted silently toward the derelict. The first streams of data were a river of contradictions, flowing across the main holographic display. Incredible, Kalen murmured. The power core is inert, yet it leaks no radiation. The life support systems are offline, yet the biological signatures within are perfectly preserved. It is a masterpiece of primitive design, yet it achieves a quantum-level efficiency our best systems cannot match. Valerius watched, his own light a nervous, wavering gold. The data made no sense. It was a violation of known physics. The cryogenic fields are self-sustaining, Kalen said, his voice a mixture of awe and frustration. They generate their own containment without an external power source. I need a clearer reading. Before Valerius could object, Kalen boosted the probe's energy output, sending a focused quantum pulse toward the human vessel. It was a gentle knock on a door that should never have been approached, and the universe answered. It began not as a sound, but as a feeling, a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through the very structure of the stellograph. It was a bass note that felt older than stars, the sound of a leviathan stirring from an impossible slumber. Then came the lights. Across the dark, pitted hull of the Somnus, small, rectangular windows began to flicker on, one by one. Not with the clean, uniform activation of Lumine technology, but sporadically, randomly, like a billion sleepy eyes opening in the dark. The melodic chime of the stellographa's communication console sounded, startlingly loud in the tense silence. It was an unauthorized, unsecured channel. A plain-text message broadcast with no encryption, no protocol, no formality whatsoever. Translated instantly into the Lumine's primary dialect, the message contained just 3 words. 5 more minutes. Valerius's golden light nearly extinguished, leaving his form a dim, ghostly outline in the sudden, terrifying glow from the neighboring ship. He had not merely broken the edict. He had poked the god bear, and now, it was waking up. A diplomatic delegation was assembled with a speed that shattered all Lumine records. Led by emissary Lyra, whose own form was a nexus of cool, diplomatic blues and calming silver light. The team prepared for the most critical first contact in their history. They were armed with protocols for greeting warrior kings, god minds, and silent, unknowable entities. They rehearsed apologies in 10,000 forgotten dialects and prepared offerings of pure energy and complex mathematical theorems. They were prepared for anything, they believed, as their shuttle docked with the now glowing Somnus. The airlock hissed open, not to a formal reception chamber, but to a corridor that was messy. The light was warm and yellow, a stark contrast to the pure white of Lumine design. The air carried a strange, toasted aroma that their sensors flagged as a mild neurostimulant. There was no honor guard. There was no ceremony. They found the sleepers gathered in a large common area, and they were all wearing bathrobes, wrapped in fabrics of bizarre colors and fluffy textures. The beings who had been the source of mythic terror for eons were milling about, holding ceramic mugs filled with the dark, steaming liquid that produced the strange aroma. Their leader, a human female with sleep-creased lines on her face and hair gathered in a haphazard bun, approached the Lumine delegation. She was wrapped in a particularly garish crimson robe and clutched her mug like a holy relic. She took a long sip before speaking. Seriously? Her voice was raspy with sleep. Do you know how hard it is to get a synchronized nap cycle for 6 billion people? The logistics are a nightmare. Emissary Lyra's carefully prepared speech died in her thought stream. Her blue light flickered. Most esteemed sleeper, she began, her voice a wavering chord. On behalf of the luminous conclave, we offer our most profound and sincere apologies for this unintended. The human, who introduced herself as Director Eva Rostova, snorted. Buddy, you didn't just ring the doorbell. You set off the fire alarm for the whole solar system. The paperwork alone is going to take decades. Another Lumine diplomat, shimmering with conciliatory lilac hues, floated forward. We are prepared to offer reparations. We have technologies that could. Can your tech bring back authentic, wood-fired, Neapolitan-style pizza? A different human interjected from a nearby table, not even bothering to stand. I've been dreaming of a proper margarita with fresh basil for 600 years. I wake up, check the historical food index, and find out. It's extinct. Extinct. Do you have any idea how psychologically damaging that is? The Lumine delegation was frozen in a state of collective, silent shock. This was not in any of the protocols. They were prepared for fury, for war, for demands of tribute. They were not prepared for complaints about breakfast foods. And this stuff, Rostova said, gesturing with her mug, is the last of the pre-nap Sumatran dark roast. The last. When this is gone, we're on to whatever you all call coffee, and frankly, from the energy readings, I'm not optimistic. Emissary Lyra stared at the so-called director, a being whose species apparently held the power to enforce a galaxy-spanning edict of fear. And all she could see was a tired, irritable creature who desperately needed caffeine. It was a new, and deeply unsettling, form of terror. All right, that's enough, Director Rostova finally said, holding up a hand and silencing Emissary Lyra mid-apology. You're all going to give yourselves a data aneurysm. Come with me. She led the bewildered Lumine delegation from the common area, through corridors that hummed with a quiet, chaotic energy, and onto the bridge of the Somnus. The sight was another profound shock to their ordered sensibilities. The bridge was not a sterile, silent command center. It was a comfortable, lived-in space. Humans lounged in ergonomic chairs that looked suspiciously like repurposed recliners. An actual, biological cat was curled up asleep on a console that glowed with warmth. The air was thick with the aroma of fresh coffee. It was less a bridge and more a cosmic living room. Okay, Jenkins, show them the source code, Rostova said to a young man in a t-shirt depicting a cat playing a keyboard in space. Jenkins yawned, stretched, and typed a few lazy commands. The main view screen, which had shown the starfield outside, shifted. It displayed a familiar map of the cosmic microwave background radiation, the faint afterglow of creation. This is the universe's operating system, more or less, Rostova explained casually. We learned how to access it about, a million years ago. Jenkins, zoom in on subsector Gamma 7 and run the edict decryption. With another few keystrokes, the map resolved into an impossibly complex tapestry of shimmering, quantum threads. Rostova pointed to one faint, pulsing line of code woven into the very fabric of space-time. There it is. The first edict. Nice, elegant bit of programming. If I do say so myself. Lyra's form flickered violently. You wrote the edict? Wrote it? Honey, we copyrighted it. Rostova chuckled. Took a few millennia for the self-replicating nanoprobes to seed it into the background radiation of every major system. But we had time. It was the ultimate do not disturb sign. We figured a little mythic, inexplicable terror was more effective than a simple out-of-office message. The Lumine delegation was silent, their combined light dimming to a faint twilight. They looked utterly broken. Seeing their disbelief, Rostova sighed. You guys are no fun. Fine. Jenkins, give him the light show. The local star, if you please. The young technician cracked his knuckles. You got it, boss. On the screen, the view shifted to the system's yellow star. As the Lumine watched in abject horror, the star's corona, a multi-million-degree shroud of plasma, began to flare and twist in a controlled, impossible fashion. It took less than a minute for the stellar fire to coalesce, blazing across the void. In perfectly formed, galactic-scale letters of their own language that we were sleeping. That was the moment their universe broke. It was a collective, silent scream of realization that echoed in the very core of their beings. For 100,000 years, their civilization had been guided by a sacred, terrifying law passed down from the dawn of time. And it was all a joke, a prank, a cosmic message in a bottle written by creatures who treated the laws of physics like suggestions, and who were currently arguing over who had to make the next pot of coffee. High Scribe Valerius looked from the star-sized message back to the humans in their bathrobes and finally understood. They weren't primitive. They weren't even advanced. They were the architects. Seeing the Lumine delegation still flickering with existential shock, Director Rostova sighed and took another sip of coffee. You guys are still thinking in terms of threats and power levels. That's so last millennium. Look, you're all stressed. Let me show you how we solve problems. Jenkins, pull up a list of current, intractable regional conflicts. On it, the technician replied, tapping his console. Got a good one. The Ktharvexian border war. Been going for 8 centuries. 2 fleets of grumpy, silicon-based life forms fighting over a nebula that has 0 strategic or resource value. Perfect, Rostova declared. A pointless forever war. Those are my favorite. Patch me into the command channels for both fleets. Director, you cannot. Emissary Lyra pulsed with alarm. Interfering in a sovereign conflict is a violation of blah, blah, blah. Rostova waved a dismissive hand as the connection went live. On the main screen, the bewildered, craggy faces of 2 alien admirals appeared. Greetings, gentlemen. Rostova said cheerfully. Good news. Your war has been officially replaced. Congratulations, you've both been selected as the first contestants on a new reality show we're calling The Great Galactic Bake-Off. Before either admiral could respond, human programming code, as infectious and fast-moving as a pop song chorus, swarmed through their ancient battle systems. Weapon lock-on alerts on their bridges were replaced by oven preheating timers. Ammunition counts flipped to show lists of ingredients, flour, sugar, alien eggs, which were then promptly synthesized and teleported directly into their ship's galleys by human matter converters. A live broadcast, complete with a catchy theme tune and human commentators, was routed to every public screen in the sector. A bold choice from Admiral Grolnock of the Kthar, going with a traditional lava rock cake, one human commentator mused, to the entire galaxy. But let's see if it can stand up to the delicate, gravity-defying Vexian sponge that Admiral Zorp is attempting. The 2 fleets, utterly baffled and with their weapon systems now displaying cookie recipes, had no choice but to participate. For 12 hours, the 2 warrior species, who had dedicated their lives to honorable combat, furiously baked. The war ended when a panel of human judges, via teleported tasting spoons, declared the Vexian admiral's 6-tiered chiffon cake to be fluffy, yet poignant, with a surprisingly complex emotional aftertaste. The Kthar admiral, honor-bound by the suddenly imposed rules of the competition, gracefully seeded the nebula. Back on the bridge of the Somnus, the Lumine delegation was silent. They had just witnessed an 800-year war, a conflict that had claimed millions of lives, get resolved with a pastry competition. They were staring at beings who didn't just break the rules of physics, but the very concept of galactic conflict itself. This was not power as they understood it. This was something far stranger, far more terrifying, and infinitely more effective. Later, after the galaxy's newest and most unexpected peace treaty had been brokered, High Scribe Valerius found Director Rostova on a quiet observation deck. The clamor of the bridge had faded, replaced by the silent, steady turning of the stars. Valerius's golden light was subdued, his form calm for the first time since the awakening. He had watched gods end a war with a bake-off, and now he needed the final piece of the puzzle. I understand the power. Valerius began, his voice a soft, resonant chord. I believe, begin to understand the humor. But I do not understand the withdrawal. Why, Director? With the ability to shape reality, why would your species choose to abandon it? Why the great nap? Rostova stared out at the starfield, her expression uncharacteristically serious. The weary, coffee-craving prankster was gone, replaced by someone who looked as ancient as the stars themselves. Because we were breaking the game, she said quietly. For everyone. She turned from the viewport to face him. Humanity spent millennia fighting. First each other, then our own limitations. We nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times over. But we learned. Eventually, we solved everything. War, poverty, disease, energy, even mortality, to a degree. We created a utopia, and we were profoundly, existentially bored. So, the records were partially correct, Valerius noted. Partially, Rostova conceded. But the boredom was just a symptom. The real problem was us. We'd look out at the galaxy and see a young species like yours wrestling with quantum theory, and some high school student on Titan would solve their biggest paradoxes as a weekend homework project and post the answer on the galactic net. We'd see two species arguing over a nebula, and we'd have 1,000 different, instantly effective solutions. We were the adults in a universe full of toddlers, and we kept taking their toys and showing them how they worked, instead of letting them figure it out. She gestured to the stars. You were all supposed to have your own stories, your own struggles, your own triumphs, your own aha moments. But our very presence, our constant, chaotic, restless innovation, it was robbing you of that. We were becoming cosmic spoilers. Valerius felt a new kind of awe wash over him, an understanding far deeper than the fear he had felt before. So you left, he whispered. You withdrew. We put ourselves in a timeout, Rostova corrected with a faint smile. We decided to let the universe cook for a few hundred millennia without us stirring the pot. The great nap wasn't an act of boredom, scribe. It was an act of restraint. The edict was just our way of making sure no one knocked on the door. Before class was out, Valerius finally understood. The casual, almost flippant power of the humans had been terrifying. But this profound, cosmic responsibility, this willingness to sideline themselves for the good of everyone else, was a power on a completely different scale. It wasn't the power to shape the universe. It was the wisdom to know when to leave. It alone, the revelation of humanity's cosmic prank, did not cause the collapse of galactic civilization. Instead, it triggered a renaissance. The Lumine, freed from the shackles of their single, most profound fear, experienced a cultural explosion. Their cities of pure, ordered light, once silent and shimmering with solemn purpose, were now filled with chaotic new art forms. They learned to bend light into sculptures that were intentionally asymmetrical, to compose symphonies with jarring, emotional chords, and to embrace the very concept of imperfection they had so long avoided. High Scribe Valerius, no longer a keeper of a dead law, but the chief interpreter of a cosmic joke, became the galaxy's most celebrated philosopher. His magnum opus, the Zen of the cosmic prank, finding meaning in absurdity, became required reading across 1,000 worlds. He taught that the universe was not a grand, orderly design, but a divine comedy, and the wisest thing a species could do was learn to laugh at itself. Kalen, whose hubris had started it all, was not punished. In their newfound wisdom, the Lumine instead made him the head of the newly formed Department of Trying Stuff and Seeing What Happens. It became a hub of mostly safe innovation, channeling his ambition into projects that were as brilliant as they were unpredictable. The change rippled outwards. Humanity's most dangerous export was not their technology, but their culture. The concept of the weekend spread with the fervor of a new religion among species who had worked for millennia without a break. A stoic warrior race, the Cathar, discovered the subtle joys of competitive gardening. Gaseous beings from the Cygnus cluster learned to express emotion by forming intricate smoke rings in time with human blues music. The galaxy lost its pristine, sterile order. In its place, it gained something far more valuable: a messy, vibrant, and joyful chaos. The old, perfect symphony was over. Now, a galaxy-wide jam session was just getting started. 1 standard year later, Director Rostova summoned the new Lumine High Council to the bridge of the Somnus. The council, which now included High Scribe Valerius, arrived to find the humans looking noticeably mellow. The frantic energy of their awakening had subsided into a comfortable, lazy quiet. "Well, it's been fun," Rostova said, stifling a yawn, as she gestured for them to gather around the main view screen. "You're all doing great. The Cthar just won their first interplanetary flower show. The Vexians have discovered jazz fusion. We're very proud. But," she paused, taking a sip from her mug, "we're getting tired again. The novelty's worn off. I think it's time for another nap." A wave of dismay, not fear, pulsed through the Lumine. "But you cannot leave," Valerius exclaimed, his golden light flickering with genuine disappointment. "We were just about to explore the philosophical implications of your karaoke." "You'll be fine," Rostova said with a reassuring smile. "You don't need us holding your hands anymore. But, to keep things from getting too dull, we've left a few parting gifts." The coordinates to a pocket dimension made entirely of raspberry jam, the schematics for a truly perfect reclining chair, and the last known location of a taco truck that can break the light barrier. Have fun. Around them, the lights on the Somnus began to dim. The chaotic energy of the bridge subsided into a gentle, sleepy hum. As their hibernation fields began to reactivate, Rostova broadcast one last message to the galaxy. "Okay, for real this time, let us sleep. But hey," she added, as her own form began to shimmer with cryogenic energy, "feel free to keep the don't disturb rule. It's got a nice ring to it." The human ship went silent, once more a dormant relic adrift in the stars. But the galaxy it left behind was irrevocably changed. It was no longer a universe defined by an ancient, misunderstood fear, but one awakened to a future of boundless, chaotic, and joyful possibility.